There. At this point, I want to introduce the method about which we talked in the previous video, and it is the very effective and at the same time is a very easy way to determine the both the of course the general name and the specific name of any kind of interval. So let's start with this example. I take just two notes, so this C, I take this C and this higher A note. Okay, so now I want to name this interval. So first off, of course, I have to determine the general name. We already know how to do it. We explained it in depth. We saw in depth in the previous video lessons how to do it. But let me remind you, just a moment. I have to start from the lowest note, and I have to count starting from the same note and moving step by step. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So how many notes do I have between these two notes? There are 6 notes. I have to count 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So since I have to count 6 to go from C to A, from this C to the higher A, I have the 6th interval. This is a 6th interval, or an interval of a 6th. Okay, so this is the general number. Now we have to determine also the specific number, and I have to introduce the bullet point method I talked about before. So let's start with the first step of this method to determine the specific name. So the first step of this method is to take the lowest note of the interval, and on this note I will build the corresponding major scale. So the corresponding major scale, in the sense that means that the lowest note of the interval would be the tonic note of the major scale that I have to build on it. So in this case, of course, since I have a C, the corresponding scale that I have to build starting from this note is, of course, the C major scale that we know very well. So C, D, E, F, G, A, B, and then again C. Okay, this is the first step, which is building a major scale on the lowest note of the interval. Okay, so please let me notice only a thing that I have to. I mean, let me. I can. We have. Let me note. Let me note only this thing. The scale, the major scale that I have to build, starting from the lowest note, is independent from the key in which we are. For example, I can also be in the A major key, or I can be in the F sharp major key. But however, independently from the key in which I am, I always have to build the major scale on the lowest note of the interval. So these are two different things. The scale that I have to build to determine the specific name of the interval can also be different from the key in which I am, in which I'm working, in which I'm playing. Okay, this is something quite important that I want to notice, because sometimes it happens to get confused in this because of this reason. Okay, so let's go to the second step. Okay, so the second step of this bullet point method is to take the highest note of the interval, which in this case is the E note, and we have to compare it to the corresponding note of the major scale, we build on the lowest note. We have to compare the highest note of the interval with the note of the scale we build on the lowest note, with the note of the scale which has the same, we could call it the same generic name. And with generic name we mean only the if we take about the generic name of a note, we don't consider the accidental. So for example, I can say that A and A flat has the same generic name, since in both cases we have A and A. Even in the case in which of course this is an A flat while this is an A natural. So for example, the F sharp and F have the same generic name. Okay, so this is something very important. So I have to take the highest note of the interval, which is the A, and I have to compare it with the A note of the major scale, of the C major scale in this case, of course, which of course is again an A natural. So we have both in these cases, both either the highest note of the interval or the corresponding note of the scale, so with the same generic name, have the same alteration, accidentals. Okay, so this is the second step, to take the highest note of the interval and to compare it with the corresponding note, so with the same generic name, the corresponding note of the scale, of the major scale that I have built on the lowest note of the interval. Okay, and then we come to the third degree, which is an essential. Sorry, to the third step, which is an essential step, and then we will have something very, very, very important. We will find out something very important. Okay, the third step is to when we have to compare these two notes, so the highest note and the corresponding note with the same name of the major scale we build on the lowest note of the interval, we can have two different cases. Okay, the first case is that in the first case we have that the highest note of the interval and the corresponding note of the major scale we build on the lowest note of the interval have the same accidental. So the same accidentals as in the case, of course, of the C major scale. In this case, the highest note of the interval C A, in this case, this note, the highest note, is exactly the same of the sixth degree of the C major scale, which is the corresponding note I have to look for, okay, to make this comparison. Okay, so this is the first case, but I can, of course, have another case, the second case, which is the case in which the highest note of the interval and the corresponding note of the scale don't have the same accidental. So at this point, when we come to the third step, depending on which of the two cases depending on which of the two cases happen, we will have two different ways, different path we will have to follow. So in the next video, we are going to see the first case. So how can we find the specific name in the case in the first case, so the case in which the highest note of the interval and the corresponding note of the scale have the same alteration, the same accidentals.